Let's turn to The Hague now, where South Africa is asking the UN's highest court to instruct Israel to stop its offensive in Rafah. These are live pictures from the International Court of Justice. The hearing is the latest intervention by the South African government in its legal case against Israel. It says, as well as direct military attacks, Israel is starving Palestinians in Gaza by obstructing access to deliveries of food, fuel and medicines. Israel has insisted it is acting in accordance with international law. It has dismissed the South African case as a baseless blood libel. South Africa's legal team have been outlining their case and have accused Israel of breaching the court's previous orders with impunity.
Israel is escalating its attacks on Palestinians in Gaza, and in so doing is willfully breaching the binding orders of this court. Israel similarly breaches the binding resolutions of the United Nations Security Council, erroneously believing from the lack of countermeasures by the international community that it is exempt from having to respect international law.
We've heard assurances that Israel was doing everything in its power to avoid civilian deaths as it exercised its claimed right of self-defense. We've heard boasts that Israel's army is the most moral army in history. And we've heard denials that there is famine in Gaza. For months, people, particularly in the West, have appeared unwilling to accept that the accusations are true. How could people who look like us and sound like us possibly engage in anything like genocide?
We'll listen into more of those proceedings in just a moment. First, let's get the latest from our correspondent, Anna Holligan, who is at The Hague and following all the developments there for us. Anna, welcome to you. Just remind us, first of all, why South Africa is bringing this case.
Any country that's a member of the Genocide Convention has a responsibility to ensure there are no violations of that convention. That's one. But secondly, South Africa sees parallels between apartheid South Africa and the situation that Palestinians in Gaza are facing right now. We're an hour into this hearing, and as you heard there, South Africa's legal team have been laying out their arguments. They're basically asking for the judges here at the UN's highest court, the World Court as it's often referred to issue 3 emergency measures. You can't hear any protesters this time round, although it's the 4th time South Africa has made this request to the court for an order for Israel to cease hostilities and to immediately withdraw. But that's because this hearing was held so quickly, which is an indication of how seriously the judges here are taking this. So as well as asking the court to order Israel to immediately withdraw from Rafah, the South African legal team have said that UN investigators, humanitarian aid organisations and journalists must be allowed in to ensure the provision of food, water, medical supplies, but also so that if there are any violations of the Genocide Convention taking place, that evidence can be gathered for any future trials. They've also asked the judges to order that Israel report back to the court within a week on how it's implementing any measures. I just want to give you some of the detail, though, that we've heard in court from the lawyers for South Africa. So lawyer Vaughan Lowe said Israel's actions in Rafah are part of the end game. This is the last step in the destruction of Gaza. They also talked about apartheid and also made a link between what's happening now in Rafah and what happened in Srebrenica, insofar as Rafah is being seen as the last safe zone for Palestinians in Gaza. And South Africa says if Rafah isn't protected, it will make it very difficult, if not impossible, to rebuild Gaza and preserve Palestinian life in Gaza now and in the future. Israel, of course, we should say, will have a chance to defend itself in court tomorrow. It will also have 2 hours. Israel's legal team is in court. You can probably hear the rumble of engines outside. The Peace Palace now waiting to take people away. This is a hugely contentious case. It's probably the most sensitive case the ICJ has ever dealt with, which is why it's generating so much attention. And South Africa has said there is no other option. This is the last hope, and that's that's why they are applying to judges here at the ICJ to issue these emergency measures to protect the Palestinian life in Gaza.
OK, Anna, thank you. Well, let's listen in now to those proceedings. A lawyer for South Africa is making further arguments.
Story of every Palestinian who is suffering at the hands of Israel's relentless genocidal campaign. Indeed, this court has held in Bosnian genocide that, quote, it is sufficient to examine those facts that would illuminate the question of intent or illustrate the claim by the applicant of a pattern of acts committed against members of the group, such as to lead to an inference from such pattern of the existence of a specific intent, end quote. In these submissions, I show that Israel's genocidal acts against Palestinians in Rafah form part of a continuing, escalating pattern of conduct across Gaza that provides persuasive and consistent evidence of Israel's genocidal conduct. In light of these new facts, South Africa seeks an order from the court, the only order that will clearly protect what is left of Palestinian life in Gaza. It seeks an explicit order that Israel cease its military activities, not only in Rafah, but throughout Gaza. Turning then to the genocidal acts, in my remaining time before you, I will highlight the following features of the genocidal campaign by Israel. First, Israel has continued to kill Palestinians in Gaza, including women and children, at an alarming rate. Second, as a result of Israel's onslaught, Palestinians in Gaza are facing what the Under-Secretary General of the UN has described as the worst humanitarian crisis he has seen for more than 50 years. Third, Israel's systematic targeting and bombardment of hospitals and medical facilities and its throttling of humanitarian aid has pushed Gaza's medical system to collapse. Fourth, Israel's direct attack and siege of Gaza's biggest hospitals has led to the uncovering of mass graves, evidencing Israeli massacres of Palestinians seeking shelter and medical treatment. Finally, most recently, Israel has intensified its attacks in the north while pressing on with its Rafah offensive, leaving displaced Palestinians nowhere safe to go. I will take these in turn. The first feature of the genocidal conduct, killing. Since South Africa appeared before the court on 11 January 2024, at least 11,500 Palestinians have been directly killed by Israel. The majority of these casualties are women and children, in an enclave where nearly 50% of the population are children. This onslaught has occurred despite the binding orders issued by this court and the binding Security Council resolution on 25 March 2024, demanding an immediate ceasefire for the month of Ramadan. In fact, as UNICEF pointed out, a double-digit number of children were killed within hours of that resolution. 2 mothers and 4 children are killed every hour. UNRWA head Philippe Lazzarini says, "There are no words left that can do any justice to the people of Gaza. The numbers of dead and injured defy comprehension. At least 35,000 Palestinians killed and 79,000 injured, with 10,000 more reportedly missing or under the rubble. Up to 1.7 million displaced, most multiple times, and more than 70% of all housing stock in Gaza and more than 80% in parts of northern region damaged or destroyed.
That's where we are going to leave proceedings at the International Court of Justice. Just a reminder that Israel will have its turn to respond tomorrow. If you'd like to continue watching that coverage, just head to our website. You'll find our live page on the case. And there you can watch the court proceedings live and uninterrupted, or you can watch them in their entirety as well.